bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. Well, I mentioned that Thanksgiving has historically been more of a sorrow-giving holiday for me, with all sorts of bad luck and people stepping over me and all that. But there was one bright spot last year. Last year I returned to the dating scene, but the way I returned is kind of unconventional. We got to go back a few months before Thanksgiving last year. I was having a lot of difficulty networking with people. I almost wanted to move out of Phoenix in large part because of it. I had a big problem. Leave a comment if you can relate to this. I was working a dream job, but I didn't have dream circumstances. I was all alone. I didn't have the right circle of friends. Oftentimes, I had difficult landlord situations, in large part because I didn't have the right network to meet the right people. And so even at my dream job, logistics often didn't work in my favor because I didn't get along with all of my colleagues. So I would get all the shittiest hours and shifts. And but it was a dream job with nightmare circumstances, is how I want to put it. I almost want to make a movie out of it. I had tried to network and potentially date at various meetup groups that I went to last summer 2024, and I had very shitty luck. People didn't even look in my direction. I would go to an event and I would sit down and all of the eyes would turn away. In fact, people would often find excuses to get up to get drinks or whatever, and then they would sit down somewhere else. That was not an uncommon circumstance for me. And I didn't know why. I so much would have loved for these people to be brutally honest with me, even if it's something like, oh, you smell so bad and you look bad and you talked about this really sensitive subject. I so much would have loved some of these people to get up and do that. Hopefully one of these days, I'm hopeful, because I love Google AI and love searching all sorts of queries on it. One of these days I could plant some cameras on my eyes. Google AI could chaperone my situation and talk and tell me about it, right? I'm hopeful to live to see that day. I really am. It's been a big motivation for me to stay healthy so that I see that day come. It will come in my lifetime. I just don't want it to be old when it comes, right? That's what's keeping me staying healthy. Anyway, I had gone to one of these meetups where I had tried to present myself as an artist. I hauled a bunch of my art to the meetup, some bismuth crystals, a bunch of canvases that I had painted. I can't remember if I started the Legos yet. I might have had a few Legos, and a few other things. And I set them up on a table, and to my dismay, none of the eyes really turned in that direction. And then I had to haul it all home. Hauling art home is always painful. Infinitely more so than hauling it to a social event. Just take my word for that. Especially after an unsuccessful event like that. But one day, I was investing some money. I was depositing money into my Roth IRA account. Every year you get to invest $7,000, and also for the first $2,000 you get a tax credit. So I had already put $2,000 in there. Now I was adding more to it. And as I was doing that, I was amazed at how much my Roth was worth. Now, I've been investing in my Roth since I was 22 years old, and so most years I come pretty close to maxing it out, or at least enough to get the tax credit. Some years I don't max it out, but I always get the tax credit, and unless I make too much that year and don't get it. But I was amazed at the amount. As I'm looking at the Roth IRA, I also have the Meetup Group site open on a different tab. And I'm like, God, I wish I could rebalance the two. I'd rather give up some of my Roth IRA for more success over there. I mentally wanted to click the rebalance button. I know it sounds strange. Leave a comment if you can relate to that. But I mentally wanted to click the rebalance button, and then it hit me. What if I went to a trusted friend that I knew and offered him a reward for him to set me up on a blind date? Or in general, just anybody that I trust, right? And that's when I came up with the idea. And then I thought about how much the reward should be. And here's where I came up with the number. I didn't just pick that number out of my ass, by the way. what I did was I was thinking about all the disadvantages of not having the right connections. And it's a lot, right? You got workplace biases, you got personal logistical difficulties. Like for example, I so much would love to take a trip to Yosemite. It's 10 hours drive away. Be nice to have somebody to share the drive with, right? Those little logistical challenges will eat away at you. And life is very interconnected, right? A missed trip to Yosemite suddenly becomes mental health challenges, which then becomes bad workplace performance. And you get the idea, right? They're not isolated events, right? And so I figured if I could trade half of my net worth for a future wife, I think that would be a relatively even trade, believe it or not. And so I did a couple more Google searches. I asked Google how many people an average person has to date here in the United States before they marry somebody. It was about 30, but then I realized half of all marriages don't work, so it's really 60. And so the math was I took my net worth, half of it, and then divided it by 60, and that would be how much I should offer for a reward. That was the math, in case you're curious. And then I divided that by half again to give myself some negotiating leeway. So it was really my net worth divided by 2, and then by 60, and then another 2. So my net worth divided by 240 was how I came up with how much to offer for the reward, as you guys saw last year. Now, did it work? Yes and no. Did I meet anybody from the reward program that I would likely marry? Probably not. But it put me back in the scene, and I wasn't desperate again. It changed the dynamics of what it meant to go back to meet up, or to go on vacation, or to go to a party. And so that was all good. I've since learned that I didn't need to offer that big a reward. I was just desperate at the time. It's not that hard to get people interested in connecting me with other people, but at the time, it seemed like a downward spiral, and I needed to break out of it. Right. All right. So a year since my return to the dating scene, even though the way I returned was a little bit unconventional, but it got me back. It got me back in a state that I wasn't limping from one bad situation to another. Now I need somebody like that for the career scene as well. I'm an adjunct professor, and oftentimes what really sidetracks my career is not having the right connections. I have a little bit of a dilemma here. I got a colleague at my job, and I want to get to know her family because of career kind of connections, but she actually sees me in a more romantic light. And so hopefully this for one of my New Year's resolutions is to see how to break through that in some way. This is the Peter Likes Show. Bum 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 bum.